Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I'm just going to go through an example of how to complete the square. And this is used when you're changing from standard form to vertex form. All right, so if you've got a quadratic and you're trying to graph it and you want to see where the vertex is, this comes in handy. All right, so I'm going to show you how to change it to vertex form. So if you could just copy this example down so you have it in your notes and you can refer to it when you're doing your homework. The first step says common factor a number from the first two terms. So you're just common factoring a number, no letters, and it's only from the first two terms. Even if you can common factor all three terms in your quadratic, you're only going to focus on the first two. So in the first two terms, the only number that -1 and 6 are divisible by is -1. So I'm going to factor out a -1 and then divide those two terms by that -1. So negative x squared divided by -1 is x squared, and 6x divided by -1 is -6x. All right, and then you just write the rest of the equation. Next step says divide the -6. So that would be the second term in the bracket with the x. You're going to take that number and divide it by 2. Okay, you're going to cut it in half. That happens no matter what that number is. All right, you're always dividing it by 2. And then you want to take your answer and square it. And then you're going to add and subtract that value. So I'm showing my work on the side here what I did. I took the -6, I cut it in half, that left me with -3, and then I took that -3 and I squared it. And my answer was 9. So it says, and then you're going to subtract and add that value inside that bracket there. So this is what I had originally, and now I'm going to add and subtract the 9 that I came up with. So +9 minus 9, close the bracket, and then we have a -4 or -4 at the end. The next step says to take the -9 outside the bracket, which is why I have my little red arrow. So I'm going to take that -9 out. But because it's in a bracket, I have to pay attention to see what got factored out initially, because that -9 will get multiplied by that value in the front. So in that case, it's -1. So -9 times -1 is +9. So once I take it out, it's going to become +9 outside that bracket. Okay, so there we go, +9 outside the bracket, and then we had a -4 at the end. The whole point of this was to create a nice trinomial inside the bracket that we can factor. Okay, we had a trinomial, but we were not able to factor that, right? Even if you use factoring by decomposition, there's no way you can come up with two numbers that add to 4 or multiply to 4 and add to 6. All right, those are going to be negative answers, or sorry, decimal answers. Okay, so now we have a nice trinomial that we can factor. Which is the next step, and then combine the last two terms. So those two terms can be added together. 9 plus -4, or 9 minus 4 is 5. And this in here factors to two numbers that multiply to 9 and add to -3 are going to be -3 and -3. Okay, so there we go, -3, -3, and then at the end we have a 5. And another way of writing this would be, since we have the same thing inside the bracket here, we can just write it with a squared sign. And when you're working through these questions, you will when you factor this trinomial in here, it will always be the same number. So you'll have the same thing in both brackets. Okay, so this is in vertex form. The vertex from this form will come from the -3, okay, and then the 5 right here. The equation for vertex form is y equals ax minus h plus k. So the h is right here, and that's the k. Okay, so it's going to be 3 and 5. The maximum value means like how high is the graph going to be. So I made a little sketch of what this should look like. So we have a vertex of, oh, this is backwards. This should say 3 and 5. There we go. So the vertex is 3, 5, and we have a -4 of a y-intercept, and that came just from the original equation here. Remember, it's it's ax squared plus bx plus c, and the c at the end is the y-intercept. So it's -4 in this case. So the max value just means how high does your graph go on the y-axis, and you can see that it's going to be 5. All right, so that's your example. I will post some homework questions in Google Classroom. Good luck with today's lesson.